3 bone-chilling true hidden camera horror stories that haunt you at midnight forever. Late on a chilly Friday night, within the darkness of an empty suburban street, a flickering streetlight cast eerie shadows, dancing uncertainly across a house where a clandestine secret lay hidden. Grainy footage flickered on the screen, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded within. What was supposed to be a simple family evening turned into a nightmare they'd never wake from. The camera, blinking in the shadows, captured every moment, every whisper of fear. The first strange element emerged just after dinner, when white noise crept through the house. The family was oblivious, laughter echoing in their cozy living room, when a faint scratching sound started in the attic above. It was a sound like fingers dragging across wood. Was it just the house settling, or the beginning of something far more sinister? A shiver ran down the mother's spine as she glanced at her husband. He smiled, not sensing the dread creeping into the atmosphere. Tension climbed higher as the snapshot from the hidden camera revealed odd figures lurking just outside their window. The cutout shadows moved in jerky patterns, just out of focus, hearts pounding with every breath. Was it just a trick of the light? Or was something waiting? The hairs on the back of the dad's neck stood tall, his instinct screaming. What were they drawn into? Outside, their neighbor watched from across the street. Her face twisted into a grimace, whispering, "You have to see this." The air thickened and nerves stretched tight. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Now, the camera's feed turned to static, the screen flashing ominously. The father rushed to the tech corner of the room, frantically tapping buttons, but the signal was lost. Panic exploded in the room like loud thunder. "What's happening?" the mother gasped, her voice trembling. And then, in a moment that altered everything, the door creaked open. Were they being watched? A chilling realization washed over them. The shadows they thought were outside moments before slipped inside, the atmosphere electrifying with dread. Delayed heartbeats echoed like a drumroll that wouldn't quit. Outside the confines of their home, a dark figure loomed, watching, waiting. Who or what was it? And what plans did it hold for their unsuspecting family? The mystery deepened with each breath as the camera captured the unfolding chaos. Every flicker of movement could mean danger. What were their secrets? The feeling of being exposed tightened around them like a noose, heartbeat rising alongside their mounting fear. Suddenly, everything went dark. Silence blanketed the house as the figure moved closer, creeping toward the source of the light and laughter, drawing nearer. What horror awaited inside, hidden behind the veil of their ignorance? The night was far from over. What had they uncovered? And how would they ever escape the horror that was now just steps away? The air hung heavy with anticipation as the family stood frozen. The door lay gaping, a sinister invitation to what lurked in the shadows. Fear twisted in their stomachs, and every second felt like an eternity. A heartbeat could be heard in the silence, their own, racing, desperate. The father stepped forward, instinct driving him to protect. "Stay here," he whispered, though the words sounded weak even to his own ears. He moved closer to the door, inching it wider, revealing the darkness beyond. His mind raced. Was it just the wind? A stray animal seeking warmth? Heart pounding, he crossed the threshold. With each step, the familiar surroundings began to fade, dissolving into an oppressive gloom that swallowed the light whole. The faint scratching echoed again. It was sharper, more urgent now, like someone or something was trying to break through. His thoughts screamed warnings as he turned to glance back at his wife and kids, their faces pale with horror. "Call 911. He shouted, though he wasn't sure if there was time. He couldn't let the dread settle over them any longer. Outside, the figure remained still but observant, a shadow blending into the darkness. The neighbor across the street was gone now, leaving an unsettling void where concern once was. Why had she fled? What had she seen? Panic clawed at him as he strained to see deeper into the dark. Then, a sound, a low whisper almost drowned by the night, carried by the chilling breeze. "Help me," it seemed to echo, pulling him toward its source. He hesitated, swaying between the instinct to run back inside and the inexplicable urge to discover what lay hidden. The flickering camera caught the moment. Images warped and twisted, as if sensing the horror playing out before it. Everything inside him screamed to retreat, but there was an odd allure drawing him in, a desperate need to understand what haunted him. With a deep breath, he stepped once again into the unknown, ready to confront whatever evil awaited him. For a moment, the scratching stopped, replaced by something that sounded almost like a giggle, high-pitched and twisted, echoing into the depths of the house. It sent icy chills racing down his spine. Meanwhile, inside, his wife clutched the children tightly, whispering reassurances through trembling lips. "Daddy will be back," he asked, just checking the noise, but even she felt the uncertainty knotting in her stomach. Was he making the right choice? What if he didn't return? Suddenly, the lights blinked back on, illuminating the dimness. That's when they saw a trail of muddy footprints leading in from the open door. But they weren't just any footprints, they appeared far too small. The children gasped, fear surging through them. And just like that, a whisper echoed through the air, chilling to the bone. "You shouldn't have let him go." Before they could fully process, the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness. The last thing they heard was the wild laughter of a child cackling, mocking what had emerged from the shadows. And why did it seem to know their greatest fears? This time, the family knew they couldn't wait any longer. The haunting presence had rooted itself deeper. Were they about to uncover the truth, or had they wandered into a trap they couldn't escape? Their fates hung by a thread, poised on the edge of horror. As they reached for the phone to call for help, the mocking laughter echoed once more, drowning out their desperate cries. What awaited them in the dark? And just how many had encountered the same terrifying force ready to strike? The darkness felt alive, a cold breath wrapping around them like a vice. The mother, heart hammering, felt her instincts kick in. She tightened her grip around her children, shielding them from what she feared most. "We need to get out of here," she whispered, but her voice faltered under the weight of tangible dread. Just then, the lights flickered again, giving way to brief glimpses of the footprints. Those small, muddy imprints now looked ominous, as if they led a path right into their living room. The children whimpered, glancing from the door to their mother. "Mommy, where did Daddy go?" The innocence in their words struck her like a punch to the gut. Outside, the father pressed on, his resolve swaying like a reed in the wind. The air felt thick with unspoken threats. He could still hear the whisper, an urgent plea that pulled him deeper into the shadows. "Help me," it echoed in his mind, a mantra wrapping tighter around his thoughts. Suddenly, something rustled nearby, a swath of ivy and twigs shifting as if brushed against by a hidden hand. His heart raced, he spun around, searching the darkness. Then it came again, but this time clearer. "Daddy, help!" Panic clutched him, the name like ice on his skin. Was it his child's voice? Or some twisted imitation, mocking him, leading him into a trap? He stepped back, mind working fast. Every instinct screamed to hurry back home, to protect his family, yet he was paralyzed by the chilling lure of the cry. Meanwhile, inside, the air grew colder, and an uneasy silence washed over the family. The children huddled close, breaths held tight. "What if he doesn't come back?" the boy whispered, his small body trembling against his sister. The weight of fear hung in the air, thick and oppressive. Then a sudden nerve-wracking thud echoed from somewhere in the house. It came from the hallway, a deep, resonating sound, like a heavy object dropping to the ground. The mother strode to the family room window, her heart performing a frantic dance. She stared out into the abyss, wishing for any sign of comfort or resolution. But all she saw was darkness breathing back at her. The lights flickered once more, and in that moment, everything flashed another set of tiny footprints, but no longer leading away from the door. They were coming from deeper inside the house, inching toward them. They began to pulse, almost alive, a rhythm of impending doom. "Stay here, no matter what," she ordered, as she moved toward the hallway where the noise had come from. Anxiety coursing through her veins, she managed to keep her voice steady. The children clung to one another, wide eyes reflecting the fading light. As she crossed the threshold to the hallway, the laughter erupted again, louder, more maniacal. This time, it wasn't just a child's giggle, it was a chorus, a clamor of voices, each one lacing around her, wrapping her in a web of terror. Then, just as she crept closer, she heard a small voice break through the cacophony. "Mommy, help!" It was her son, and it was coming from upstairs. The realization was like a flame igniting her fear. She spun around, fueled by a mother's fierce love. The chilling laughter morphed into shrieks, a sound of pure terror that clawed at her ears. She had no choice now. She had to confront whatever hunted them, whatever had taken hold of her family. In that moment of resolve, the lights went out completely. Staggering darkness enveloped her, and the air thickened, heavy with despair and uncertainty. What had slipped into their home, leaving a trail of fear in its wake? And could she save her family before it was too late? The cold air wrapped around her as she stood at the precipice of the hallway. Heart pounding like a drum in her chest, the anguished cries of her son spurred her forward. She lifted her shaking hand, feeling for the light switch, but the darkness swallowed her whole. Every instinct told her to turn back, to retreat into the safety of her children's embrace. But they needed her. She couldn't let fear consume her. "Mommy's coming." "Stay put," she called into the void, hoping her voice could reach him. The silence answered back, a chilling echo that felt like a presence, watching, waiting. As she moved deeper into the hallway, her footsteps sounded muffled, diminished, as if the walls were absorbing any sense of safety. She strained to listen. The laughter that had spurred her into action transformed once more, coalescing into a deep, sinister whisper. "Mommy up here." The shift from joyous mischief to something dark sent a chill racing down her spine. It was too close, too real. She stumbled back, her mind racing. Was that her son's voice or some twisted entity preying on her desperation? With every ounce of courage, she pressed on. The house groaned under the weight of her fear. The air thickened as she reached the bottom of the staircase. Staring into the blackened depths above, she saw no flicker of light. No sign of safety. Just a thick blanket of ominous shadows. She gripped the banister, her fingers slipping against the cool wood. With a deep breath, she ascended the stairs, one step at a time, feeling the weight of every creak and moan beneath her feet. The laughter crescendoed, echoing freely now, almost playful. But underlying that joy, something sharp and cutting threatened to break through. "Please, just stop. Where are you?" she shouted, her voice breaking on the last word. She hoped for a response, yet dread nestled in her throat, constricting around her. As she reached the landing, a fleeting whisper brushed against her ear, icy and malevolent. "Mommy, I'm scared." Without thought, she rushed to her son's room. The door was ajar, a sliver of darkness leaking out. She paused, heart racing, before pushing it open. The room lay steeped in shadows, toys scattered across the floor and the window curtain fluttering as if breathing. "Daniel?" she ventured, her voice now a trembling plea. There was a shift in the air, a movement behind her. A rush of cold sent ripples across her skin as she turned quickly to face the sound. But nothing was there, just thick shadows mocking her fear. She called again, her voice steady now, unyielding. "Danny, answer me." The cry came again, desperate and echoing, pulling her toward the closet. She felt the tight coil of panic constricting her chest. Every instinct screamed to flee, but the thought of her son trapped, alone, was unbearable. The closet door loomed like a gaping maw, dark and ominous, with trembling hands, she yanked the door open. The darkness spilled forth, and in that moment, something shifted. An icy hand slipped from within, small, cold, yet eerily familiar. And as her breath caught, the world spiraled around her. "Mommy, help me!" The voice was charged with fear, undeniably her son's, underscoring the dread gripping her. She snatched his hand, ready to pull him from whatever nightmare gripped him, when the laughter pierced through again, wild and uncontrolled. Behind her, out in the hallway, shadows twisted and writhed, solidifying into a form that chilled her to the core. What had hidden in the darkness, waiting patiently for the moment to strike? Could her strength be enough to free her son, or would they both succumb to the entity that lurked just beyond their grasp? The shadows thickened, swirling around her like a living tempest. She gripped Daniel's cold hand tightly, her heart racing. "We have to go, now." But as she turned, the laughter morphed into a guttural cackle, echoing menacingly down the hallway. She hesitated, torn between the instinct to flee and the urgency to protect her son. The shadows began to pulse around them, taking on shapes, twisted forms of lost souls, eyes glinting like knives, hungry for warmth, for fear. "Mommy! Don't leave me!" Daniel cried, his voice breaking, pulling her back to the present. She yanked him closer, urgency flooding her veins. "Stay close," she urged, racing towards the door. But just as she reached it, the air thickened. A presence, heavy and malignant, settled against her like a weight. She felt every pulse of darkness tightening its grip. A vicious shudder ran down her spine. She turned back, realizing the shadows hadn't just retreated. They were closing in. "Run!" she shouted, pushing Daniel ahead, willing her feet to move. They stumbled into the hallway, the oppressive shadow of the staircase looming behind them like an endless pit. The haunting laughter played tricks on her mind, guiding her back, to the source of the haunting. "This way," she said, urging him towards the stairs. But even as they moved, she felt it, a cold breath against her neck, whispering familiar phrases, turned malevolent. "You can't escape me." Panic flooded her system, and she spun around, the shadows contorting, molding into a silhouette with sharp angles, eyes filled with a dark abyss. "Who are you?" Her voice rang out, trembling yet defiant. "Mommy's not alone anymore," it mocked, feasting on her fear. "I'll keep him here with me." "No!" she screamed, searching frantically for an escape. Daniel was crying, clutching her hand tightly, as they pressed against the wall with nowhere to go. Frantic breaths turned to silence, the whispered voice sank to a lower tone, probing at her resolve. "You can either join us or leave him forever," it hissed, the shadows swirling as if alive. Every nerve in her body screamed to fight, yet her fear churned into a pit of despair. "Not my son!" she shouted, shaking the desperation off her like a cloak. With a surge of courage, she grabbed Daniel's hand, and they sprinted down the hallway. The shadows clawed at them, grasping at the hems of their clothes, yet they kept moving. "Just like that game we play. Keep running," she urged, her voice a thin thread of hope against the oppressive malaise. They barreled towards the stairs, and just as they reached the first step, the laughter exploded again, now a choir of madness surrounding them, drowning everything. The shadows converged, clawing down the walls, reaching out to seize Daniel as they raced past. She felt the icy grip on her shoulder, pulling her back, teasing her with visions of despair. She fought it, twisting away, propelled by her love. "Hold on!" she yelled, dragging him through the oppressive force. As they hit the bottom, the energy shifted, and for a moment, the laughter halted. A silence rang out, thick enough to cut. The house seemed to breathe in tandem with them. Was this a brief respite, or was the worst yet to come? In that fraught moment of stillness, a new sound emerged. A soft, yet resonant ping reverberated, pulling her gaze to the back door. It was the sound of the lock clicking, tauntingly slow, while the shadows around them ignited with anticipation. "Mommy, Daniel's terrified voice shattered the silence. What if it comes back? The unwelcome answer lingered in the air between them, leaving her with a jarring realization. The entity was more than just lurking. It was finding its way in. What can we do? She murmured, dread pooling in her stomach. But as the door creaked ever so slightly open, an even darker presence slipped in, its laughter threading through the room a promise of chaos to come. What new terror awaited them? Had they escaped one fate only to embrace another? Her heart raced, and she knew whatever lay beyond that door was bound to change everything. The door swung open with a slow, creaking groan, revealing a darkness that seemed to pulse and sway, alive with malice. The moment stretched, each second a tightrope of breath held back, waiting for the plunge. "Mommy, please." Daniel whimpered, his tiny body trembling against her. She could feel his heart racing, each rapid beat syncing with her own mounting dread. Silhouetted against the void, an amorphous figure began to form, rising from the shadows like something lifted from a nightmare. It loomed larger than life, swirling tendrils wrapping around the edges of her vision, inviting her into despair. "Come to me," it gestured, each motion graceful and yet grotesque, like some twisted parody of comfort. "Stay back," she shouted, desperation surging through her voice. She stepped forward instinctively, shielding Daniel even as her body screamed to flee. The darkness dripped around her, cold and thick, entangling her limbs as if the shadows wanted to crush her spirit. In that moment, she could almost feel it squeezing around her throat. Yet, despite the suffocating fear, something within her ignited. "I want to let you take him," she declared. With a single, powerful motion, she yanked Daniel closer and turned on her heel. They sprinted away, their footsteps echoing like a frantic heartbeat in the oppressive silence. The shadows shifted, flanking them, vibrating with rage, and that chilling laughter inhuman and echoing followed them down the corridor. She could almost feel its breath, like icy fingers trailing against her skin. "Run, Daniel. Just keep running." They burst through the hallway, adrenaline sparking to life. Glancing back, she saw the darkness consolidating, shifting, whispering threats that crackled with malice. "You cannot escape. He'll be mine. Mommy. I can't breathe." Daniel gasped, his tiny frame struggling under the weight of terror. She tightened her grip, swearing silently that she wouldn't fail him. They reached the living room, sunlight pouring through the windows like a sanctuary in the chaos. It brought temporary warmth, but the light felt distant, a flickering flame against the overwhelming dark. "Look!" Daniel cried, pointing wildly. A strange flicker illuminated the corner, a faint glimmer, a tiny door she'd never noticed before. It was barely a foot wide, well-worn and hidden behind the remains of old furniture. "Maybe we can hide in there," he proposed, wide-eyed and desperate. "Stay close," she said, swept up in their chance for escape. They squeezed through the tight opening, the shadows clawing at their heels, grasping at the air with whispers of defeat that echoed in the corners of her mind. Inside, darkness engulfed them. The claustrophobic air felt thicker, wrapping around her like a shroud. "What now?" she whispered, her voice a fragile echo in the small space. Daniel shook, his little body trembling. "They'll find us. Mommy, I'm scared." "Me too," she confessed, leaning closer, planting a kiss on his forehead to instill courage. "We just have to be quiet. If we stay still, maybe they won't know we're here." Suddenly, a thud echoed above them. The floor creaked ominously, and a shadow passed overhead. Another thud, then silence, as if the entity was peering into their secret refuge. Her heart raced anew. Every instinct screamed at her, was it watching? Waiting for the perfect moment to strike? What would they do when it found them? Just as she held her breath, the shadow split, revealing a pair of glowing eyes, piercing through the darkness and locking onto her. The laughter returned, now soft, almost familiar, wrapping around them like a sinister lullaby. "Mommy?" Daniel whispered, trembling further as the eyes drew nearer. "It knows we're here," she murmured, pulling him closer to her, the weight of hopelessness pressing down, but they were trapped. Could they find a way out, before the shadows took them? The silence that followed suffocated, threatening to engulf their fragile sanctuary in the abyss. And with one final surge, the whisper sliced through the dark, a promise that whatever happened next, they weren't alone. "Join us," it beckoned, each word dripped in honeyed malice. What would they do? Would they defy the darkness or become lost within it? The question lingered, sharp and unyielding, in the suffocating night. The darkness thickened, coiling around them with a palpable weight. Her heartbeat thudded in her ears, drowning out all sounds but the frantic whispers of Daniel's breath. He was so small, so fragile, and here they hid like prey while something dreadful hunted them. "Mommy, it's getting closer," he whimpered, his voice barely more than a terrified whisper. She squeezed him tightly, trying to convey strength amid her own mounting despair. Each second felt like an hour, a slow crawl toward inevitable dread. The glowing eyes were now closer, piercing through the dark like knives, searching. Panic washed over her, leaving her breathless. How could they have found them so quickly? Did it have a scent? A knowing that surpassed normal intentions? There was no doubt the shadows were intelligent, forged from malevolence. She hushed, cupping his face with her trembling hands. "Just hold on. We need to be brave." But with every breath, the stench of loamy earth and decay flooded her senses, twisting her stomach into knots. This was not her home. It felt wrong, foreign, as if the walls of this hidden space were made of sin itself. Just then, the floor above them creaked again, heavy and deliberate. She could hardly distinguish footfalls from the sound of her own rising panic. Whatever hunted them was close, too close. And with every creak, it felt more like a predator closing in. "Mommy?" Daniel's voice cracked, filled with a child's raw fear, tugging at her heart. How could she protect him if they couldn't escape? Every fiber of her being screamed for action, but the darkness around them threatened movement, clinging like a shroud. Then the laughter returned, full and rich like a nightmare given life. "You think you can hide?" It mocked, twisting their hope into a fragile thread. The air chilled, plunging them into icy dread. "You will join us, little boy, just like the rest." Rage ignited in Alicia's chest, burning away the fog of fear. "No!" she shouted, her voice stronger than she felt. "You will not take him." The eyes flared momentarily, then dimmed, seemingly taken aback by her defiance. What if her outburst had drawn it closer? The silence hung heavy after her cry, as if the shadows paused, contemplating their next move, but the stillness was shattered as the small door sprang open. Alicia's eyes widened. "No! No!" In that moment, the darkness shifted, pooling outward to envelop the entrance. Daniel clutched her hand tightly, deep fear entwining with the desperation for freedom. The figure, still cloaked in shadows, moved closer to the door, its form distorting as it advanced. "You can't escape. You're part of this now." Her brain raced, searching for a plan, a way to fight back against whatever horror awaited them on the other side. With sudden clarity, she yanked Daniel up into her arms, positioning him tightly against her chest with fierce determination. "Whatever happens, don't look away from me. We're getting out." She squeezed through the barrier, shadows wrapping around her but somehow parting at her fearless advance. She could feel a surge of energy surge, burning at her skin as the darkness recoiled from their courage. Then she was through, into a new realm, one that looked remarkably like their old home but felt wrong. The very air buzzed with strange energy, as if it were vibrating with laughter, mocking her. "Where is this?" Daniel's voice trembled, his tiny fists clenching around her shirt. "I don't know." She gasped, fear cutting through her determination like jagged glass. "But we have to keep moving." As they stumbled forward, a faint glow flickered on the far end of the room, a strange luminescence held in a beating heart, a warm opposite to the cold shadow. "Mommy, I'm scared, just hold on." she exclaimed, the pulsing light drawing them like a moth to a flame. But as her fingers reached out, a chilling hiss echoed through the room, sending shivers down her spine. Join us, you'll never be alone again. Had they really escaped, or was this another layer of the nightmare? Alicia felt a sudden rush of terrified realization. The darkness had led them here, and the pulsing light might be the only thing between them and total despair. An illusion? Or a chance? They didn't have long to decide. Hastily, she pushed forward, the room shifting, twisting, as if time itself were unraveling around them. Would this bring salvation or seal their fate forever? And above them, laughter rippled like a wave as the shadows shifted closer, eager for their next move. Alicia's heart raced as she felt the heat of the pulsating light beckoning her forward. With each step, she could sense the shadows narrowing around them, as if the air itself thickened with malevolent intent. Daniel squirmed in her arms, his small frame trembling against her. It was the tremor of a child caught in a web of dark terror, his big eyes wide with fear. "Mommy, what if it gets us?" he whimpered, his voice raspy, fragile. She tightened her grip, steeling her resolve. "It won't. I promise." The glow up ahead flickered like a heartbeat, rhythmically pulsing against the oppressive darkness. But with each beat, the shadows writhed, twisting like snakes preparing to strike. Alicia scanned the room, desperation clawing at her as she sought an escape. Then she saw it, a narrow passage shrouded in light just off to the right, a shimmering doorway that promised safety. Instinct kicked in, propelling her towards it as the laughter rolled around her, a chilling caress that sent prickles down her spine. It felt like the very essence of fear, wrapping around her and squeezing, intending to paralyze her, but she wouldn't let it. Not with Daniel depending on her. "Come on, Daniel," she urged, pushing past the flickering shadows. But the closer they got, the more she felt the coldness seep into her bones, like icy fingers grasping at her heart. Just as they approached the doorway, the air crackled, and the laughter crescendoed into a maniacal cacophony. The shadows suddenly surged forward, their forms growing solid, twisted limbs and eyes filled with hunger. "You thought your courage would save you? You belong with us." Alicia's breath caught in her throat. She could feel the weight of their malice like a storm about to break. "No!" she yelled, her voice a battle cry against the encroaching darkness. She shifted Daniel slightly in her arms, her motherly instinct flaring to life as the passage glowed brighter. "Mommy!" Daniel shrieked, eyes wide as those ghastly shadows reached for them. She could see the desperation in his face, a reflection of her own turmoil. Alicia bolted toward the malefic glow, clenching her teeth to keep from screaming. The shadows clawed at her, trying to drag her back, the darkness almost palpable and eager. Just a little longer, she urged herself. She felt the warmth of the light wash over them as they barreled into the doorway. But nothing prepared her for the next moment. The ground beneath their feet shifted violently, a quaking that felt otherworldly. They were no longer in the room anymore. The air was clean, fresh, but the shadows had followed them through the light. "What just happened?" Daniel asked, panic threading through his voice. Alicia's eyes darted around. They found themselves in a landscape that looked like their neighborhood but was warped in some horrific way. Trees loomed larger, the houses distorted. Laughter echoed in the distance, but it was darker now, tinged with something far more sinister. "They can't follow us here," Alicia said, trying to comfort herself as much as Daniel. But doubt gnawed at her. This wasn't right. Was it even a real place, or another trap set for them? As they moved forward, a strange figure appeared down the road, tall, draped in shadows, its features obscured by darkness. It raised a long arm and pointed directly at them. "You can run, but you cannot hide," it whispered, the voice an echo that reverberated through Alicia's mind, chilling her to the core. Daniel clutched her shirt, his grip becoming a lifeline as dread washed over her. The shadows were out there, lurking, waiting, and somehow, they knew where they were. "Mommy, what do we do?" Daniel whimpered, pulling her closer. "Stay close to me, Daniel," she said. But her voice was laced with uncertainty. "We have to keep moving." Just as they turned to flee, the ground beneath them rippled again, and the laughter swelled to a roar. She realized with terror, the only direction available led back toward the dreadful glow, a choice between two evils. Her heart battled against the weight of despair. Could they stand up to the darkness again? "What will you choose?" the figure taunted, inching closer. Alicia was at a crossroad, caught in a web of choices that might seal their fates forever. With each passing second, the tension seeped into her marrow, poisoning her resolve. Would they find a way through, or would the shadows claim them after all? And in that moment, she knew the desperate choice lay ahead: destroy the darkness before it consumed their very souls, or surrender to the shadows forever. How could she choose? And was time already slipping away? Alicia felt the adrenaline surge through her body like a lightning bolt. She had to act. Just behind them, the shadows writhed and twisted, slinking closer, whispering her name with taunting echoes. Heart pounding, she pulled Daniel tighter against her. The figure before them loomed larger, its form absorbing the dying light. Panic pooled in her stomach like cold lead. "Daniel, we're going this way," she shouted, clutching his small hand and darting toward the nearest house. Its silhouette was terrifying, warped and pitch black against the strange landscape, but it was the only option. They needed shelter from whatever pursued them. The door swung open with a creak that echoed through the eerily silent neighborhood. Alicia ushered Daniel inside and slammed the door shut behind them. For a moment, they stood in darkness, the shadows pressing against the walls, trying to claw their way in. "Mommy, what if they come in?" Daniel's voice trembled. His trust in her weighed heavily on her heart. "They won't. At least, not while we're here." She swallowed hard. The fear stung her throat. "Just stay quiet." As Alicia's eyes adjusted to the dim light, she noticed the interior was as twisted as the outside. The furniture was distorted, stretching like a grotesque dream. A long table in the center appeared to be dripping shadows, pooling on the floor like spilled ink. The air smelled stale, suffocating. "Maybe we can find a way out through the back," she whispered. They needed to stay ahead of the creeping dread. She led Daniel toward the back of the house, each creaking floorboard sounding louder than thunder in her ears. Just as they reached the door, a low growl resonated from behind them, freezing her in place. Footsteps. Heavy and deliberate. Alicia's heart skipped a beat as the growling grew closer, vibrating through the air. She glanced back, and her stomach dropped. A shadow materialized near the doorway, an amorphous figure rolling and twisting, the edges undefined. Its features were a sickening blend of human and monster, a parody of life dripping with malice. "Why do you run?" it crooned, a voice pure poison. "It only makes the fear taste sweeter. We're not afraid of you," Alicia shouted, forcing defiance into her trembling words, even as her insides twisted. She could see Daniel's wide eyes reflecting terror, and the hot rush of maternal instinct surged through her veins. "Ah, but you are. It's in your heart, little girl." The shadow slithered closer, curling around the edges of the dimly lit room. "And I can smell it." In a moment of desperation, Alicia yanked the door open and shoved Daniel behind her. "We're leaving." They charged through the doorway, back into the night. The laughter returned, sharper now, echoing through the warped neighborhood. Each house held its own dread, shadows lurking beneath every window as if waiting for a chance to lash out. "Where do we go?" Daniel panted, eyes darting around. Alicia scanned their grotesque surroundings, her mind racing. Then she spotted a flicker of light far down the street, pulsing rhythmically. It drew her like a moth to a dangerous flame. "Follow me," she called, sprinting toward it as shadows chased them. She felt the icy fingers of the darkness almost clutching at her heels, but she had to focus. They had to reach the light. As they ran, the laughter behind them intensified, mingling with a chilling chant. You cannot escape. You cannot escape. Desperation fueled her speed. Almost there. Then they stumbled into a clearing, where a large stone well stood ominously. The light flickered above it, pulsing like a stubborn heartbeat. "Mommy, what's that?" Daniel asked, gripping her hand tightly. Before she could respond, the shadows halted just a few feet away, seething with a hunger that curled in their forms. "Should you jump?" The figure sang, tilting its head, a grotesque grin splitting its face. "Or should you run back into the darkness?" Alicia felt her chest tighten, panic threatening to fog her thoughts. What lay below the surface of the well? Had they finally run out of options? In that moment, she had to choose, face the unknown below them, or turn back to the sinister shadows that awaited them. What if it's worse? She whispered to herself. A flicker of that pulsing light caught her eye again, swirling with promises of safety and escape, but it felt dangerously heavy with risk. "Mommy?" Daniel's voice sliced through her thoughts. "What do we do?" As the shadows crept closer, their malicious intent curling around her like rising smoke, Alicia knew that their survival hinged on an impossible choice. Would she plunge into the depths of the unknown, or surrender to the darkness? The moment hung thick in the air, pregnant with fear and uncertainty. What would she decide? Would they leap into the well, or take their chances against the creeping shadows? Alicia's heart raced, a relentless drum echoing in her ears. The darkness wrapped around them, alive with whispers and snarls that coiled around her like a snake ready to strike. The glowing light from the well pulsed softly, beckoning her forward, offering the hope of escape. But what lay beneath its surface? "Mommy?" Daniel's small voice broke through her torrent of fear, pulling her focus back to him, and she felt the weight of that innocence like a stone in her heart. "What do we do?" Alicia glanced back at the shadows, swirling closer, their hunger palpable. She felt their cold breath press against her skin. Time was slipping through her fingers, down the rabbit hole of despair. With desperation threading through her thoughts, she made a swift decision. "We're jumping," she said, each word stronger than the last, like cement hardening around her resolve. "Are you sure?" Daniel's eyes were wide, reflecting fear and trust. "Trust me. If we stay here, they will get us." With a firm grip around Daniel's hand, she stepped toward the well, her mind racing through the possibilities of what lay below. Would it be darkness? Or salvation? There was no time to ponder. The shadows hissed in impatience, gathering their strength, ready to pounce. On 3, Danny. 1, 2 they leaped without hesitation, plunging into the well's depths. The cold air swallowed them, a rush that felt dizzying. Time stretched, the darkness closing in around them, and then they hit the water. It sliced through them, icy but liberating, wrapping them in a strange embrace. For a moment, there was silence. The shadows' whispers faded as they sunk deeper, but Alicia could feel something tugging at her, trying to pull them back up into the darkness above. "Swim," she urged, clawing her way through the water with Daniel in tow. "We have to go up." Daniel followed her lead, limbs thrashing wildly. Upward they pushed, the air growing heavier, the weight of despair clawing at their throats. Just when Alicia thought they would drown in their despair, they broke the surface. Gasping for air, she pulled Daniel close, scanning their surroundings. Glistening light surrounded them, bright and vivid, conjured from nothing, illuminating the harsh reality around them. They were in a cavern, walls sparkling with crystals that reflected the light and cast beautiful shadows, dispelling the evil that had chased them. "We made it," Alicia breathed, relief flooding through her. But even in safety, unease lingered. They weren't free yet. "Mommy?" He squeezed her hand, sanctuary against uncertainty. "Are we safe now?" "For now, we are." But doubt tugged at her heart. Would the shadows follow them here? Suddenly, the laughter echoed faintly from above, a reminder that darkness lingered. "You can't escape forever," it slithered, chilling her blood. Alicia clenched her fists, defiance flaring within her. We will not let you take us. She shouted into the void, her voice resonating against the stone walls. The shadows quieted momentarily, a ripple of uncertainty darting through the darkness above. Had they never faced a challenge like this before, one that fought back? "Mommy, are we going to be okay?" Daniel whimpered. His trust surged against her fight. "Yes, we can do this," she whispered fiercely, anchoring herself to the light surrounding them. "We will find a way out. Together." Together, Daniel echoed, heartened by her resolve. They turned, searching for an exit. Ahead, a faint opening sparkled with promise, a faint beam of light threading through the darkness. With renewed courage, they propelled themselves toward it, determined at any cost. Breaching the cave's edge, they stumbled into a garden radiant with sunlight, flowers blooming in vivid colors, the air carrying the sweet scent of hope. They had emerged, but was it real or another illusion? "Look, Mommy!" Daniel exclaimed, pointing toward the horizon where a radiant path lay before them. "We can go home." Home, the word tasted like a full circle. The shadows still loomed behind, but Alicia felt the warmth of light pushing back. Their power began to wane under the sun. "Let us go," she urged, gripping Daniel's hand as they sprinted toward freedom, the earth solid beneath their feet. "We won't look back." Behind them, the shadows howled, a cacophony of fury mixed with despair, but Alicia pressed on. They burst forth into the daylight, laughter echoing in the distance, now not malevolent but joyous, a reminder of life beyond fear. As they reached the sanctuary of their neighborhood, their world gleamed with a new brightness. The shadows receded, shrinking against the brilliance of the day. "Look, Danny, we're home," Alicia said, tears of relief blurring her vision. They stood united against the darkness, one hand flexing against another, grounding their fears in love, while the other arm caught the light. A promise carried on the wind. They had escaped the shadows, but their journey would echo in their hearts, a reminder of the darkness they overcame and the strength found in one another. Together, they had defied the night, and when the whispers of darkness resurfaced in moments of doubt, they would remember, in the strength of their bond, they would always find their way back to the light. Now was the moment to reflect, to connect with those around. Were you gripped by the fear? Share your thoughts and theories on what unfolded. It's crucial to fill the comments section. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Do it now, before time runs out.